Markets are reacting to all of this with Strategic Wealth Partners investment strategist Luke Lloyd and Market Gauge Group Managing Director Michelle Snyder. Luke, I want to go ahead and start with you. Not really a dramatic day on Wall Street today. Markets trading a little bit lower. NASDAQ seeing a little bit of a bump there, but it feels like investors are just being cautious ahead of this labor report tomorrow because that's going to give us signs. That's the strong part of the economy, says the administration. That will give us a clear indication of where we're headed.
I think the stock market's trying to grab onto any kind of small positive news and act like it's way bigger and way more important than it really is. For example, Powell, said that the rate of interest rate hikes was going to slow through the end of the year. No kidding. The Fed isn't going to hike 75 basis points every single meeting. Of course it's going to slow, but the market took that statement that the Fed was going to pivot, even though that's not what the Fed said. And the stock market rallied when Pelosi landed in Taiwan, but I don't think the market's taken into account what could really happen before 2024. There's a reason why Putin and Xi stood together during the Olympics. They both want to take or make the same territorial moves and geopolitical moves. So China could easily play economic warfare with semiconductors over in Taiwan. And if they did that, every country around the world that's in a recession, including the U.S., even though the Biden administration doesn't want to admit that, will get deeper and more painful of a recession than most people think. So look, I hope I'm wrong. I hope the market keeps going higher, and I hope the economy gets better and stays better for Americans. But sadly, I just don't see that happening anytime soon. That's
actually a really good point, a point I wanted to make earlier. Sources are telling Fox News, Michelle, that it's possible to see an invasion, the Chinese invade Taiwan before the 2024 election. And as we've been watching, the markets reacted to some of the uncertainty that we saw earlier this week ahead of Nancy Pelosi's visit. You realize markets are very, very sensitive to this. Your thoughts on how geopolitics will impact the market as we head into the fall as well?
Well, certainly there is that risk, but we also can't dismiss the fact that the strait that's near Taiwan has access to American military where we can basically also block a lot of stuff happening from really the ability for China to be able to take all those semiconductors out of Taiwan. So we don't want to see it get to that mess. But if we just look at what the market is doing right now, actually all of the Chinese stocks are up. And the American stocks, of course, are selling off a little bit from its most recent rally, but this is digestion ahead of the report tomorrow with jobs. So, yes, do I think geopolitics is a factor? We have seen this trend over the course of time now, not just with Russia, but we're also seeing things like strikes, and we're seeing revolts with countries that are really having trouble feeding their people, their populace. And so the whole idea of geopolitics being a mess right now is a theme that we can kind of count on. But what's ultimately going to matter really, I think, is what's going to happen here, not just with Fed policy, because that's really, really important, but how much that interest rate, either aggressive hike or too dovish at this particular time, plays out in terms of inflation versus stagflation versus recession.
And we won't know until September, so investors will be watching that closely. August typically is a little bit slower, but as Neil has been pointing out this week, sometimes you can't, fall asleep at the wheel because things can happen. So we'll be all over it. Luke, Michelle, thank you so much. Good to see you.